ඇත්තටම අපි ඉගෙන ගන්න කාලේ වැරදි කරා කියලා කවුරුත් hina වෙන්නේ නැහැ. එහෙම hina වෙනවා නම් ඇත්තටම පිස්සු වෙන්නේ. ඒකයි verbal pitch කියන වචනය මම හිතාගන්න එක ප්‍රසන්ටේෂන් එක. මාව මාකට් කරගන්නේ කොහොමද? මගේ දැනුනේ ලංකාවේ ලොකුම CFO ලා තුන් දෙනෙක් ඉස්සර ඔයාගේ ස්කිල් සෙට් එක පෙන්නුවා කියන්නේ එදාම ඔයාව පර්මනන්ට් රස්සාවකට ඔක්කොටම.
Knowledge borrowed informs, knowledge created transforms, which is why we at Infinity Learning Space are here at the University of Kelaniya premises to speak to the creator, the consultant curriculum development of the very famous CA Sri Lanka curriculum 2025-2030. Yes, you guessed that right. We are here with Dr. Sugeeth Patabendige, who is here with us to speak to us and inform us about all the advantages and the great things that the brand new CA Sri Lanka curriculum can bring to all of us. A very warm welcome to you, Dr. Patabendige. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, and thank you for having me in your podcast.
We are absolutely honored to have you here with us, sir. And to all of you, a very warm welcome to all of you to Learning Pod 2.0, brought to you exclusively by Infinity Learning Space. As mentioned, we are here with Dr. Sugeeth Patabendige, and I am very honored to introduce him officially to you before we speak to him about all the questions. Dr. Patabendige has over 2 decades of experience in academics as an educator and as an administrator, and he currently serves as the head of department marketing management at the University of Kelaniya. Dr. Patabendige holds a PhD in accountancy from the RMIT University in Australia, a master's degree specializing in economics from the University of Colombo, and he also holds a Bachelor of Business Administration special degree specializing in finance from the same university. He is also a fellow member of the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants and an associate member of the Chartered Institute of Marketing. Well, with that said, once again, a very warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you, and thank you for that long introduction more than anything. Just to add one more thing, not as a qualification, I think what I really bring into this is none of my qualifications, but the fact that the engagement I have had with various stakeholders over time in the accounting fraternity as well as in the marketing fraternity, because I have 2 lives. One is the accounting life of mine, other is the marketing management life of mine. And all those exposure is what has come into what you now see as the curriculum 2025-2030 of CA Sri Lanka. So sorry to interrupt you, but just to add.
Wonderful. Well, we are very honored to get to know you a little bit more and to hear all about both lives of yours, and especially to get your input on the CA Sri Lanka curriculum 2025-2030. So let's speak a little bit about the curriculum. There's a lot to speak about. Godak thiyena ape students lage questions thiyena, apira answers okkama walata ganna puluwan වෙයි කියලා අපි හිතනවා. Let's speak a little bit about the curriculum. Very interesting, and very interesting tagline එකකුත් තියෙනවා, sir, which is trust drives strategy and stories inspire transformation. Yes. How important is this? Why is this important for aspiring chartered accountants?
Right. I think you've started at the best and the right place, because this curriculum is about 3 promises. And it's all about then how do we realize those promises rather. Trust, strategy, and storytelling. Now, before going into that, let me try to recall the process that we went through in terms of developing this curriculum. I think that would also be critical to explain the 3 promises that we have now held very dear and near in terms of developing this curriculum. What we do in curriculum development, we like to call ourselves, of course, we are generally identified as consultants, but we kind of look at ourselves as designers. So we design curriculums. When we design curriculums, of course, we have methodologies, different methods that had been tested by others, run by others, that we tend to follow. So the methodology that I have followed in CA Sri Lanka's 2025-2030 curriculum is what we call a design down methodology. Design down methodology involves recognizing who we want to have at the end of this curriculum. In other words, in 2030s, what kind of a chartered accountant is it that we are looking at? And then we want to identify the skill set around that particular profile. And then for that skill set, we then try to develop the curriculum. So design down, where do we want to end up, and then work backwards in terms of developing the content. So for us to identify where do we want to be, there are a lot of work that we need to do, which we normally call the diagnostic phase. In the diagnostic phase, like in medical diagnostics, where we try to recognize what is the real problem, what needs to be done. What we did here was, firstly, we were trying to identify where are our contemporaries moving. In other words, there are global other world accounting bodies. We wanted to understand where are they heading in the 2030s. So we had about 10 different global bodies, from North America to that of Europe, including UK, and then to Australasia side, where we really took their documentation on future discourse, and then we analyzed those documents. And we normally look at those analyses not as borrowing something as to what they are doing, but rather engaging in the discourse, where we also become part of such discussions. Now, from those discussions that we engaged in, we could see where they are trying to take their qualifications. More than anything, we were surprised to see how open they were in terms of the challenges the accounting profession is facing, and what they feel that they need to do to radically really move people towards addressing such challenges. So once we had that exercise done, we had a nice report prepared, and then we debated within our CA committees as to how do we take those lessons on board. We also then had another report done where we looked at every 5 years we go through cycles. So 2025, 2030 is another 5-year cycle. But what have we done in the past cycles? What were our objectives? Did we achieve those objectives? Where did we fail? How could we have done things differently in hindsight? So we had another report set that we did on that. Then we also have international education standards, which specify how accounting education should look like. What should be there as minimum. So we had another report prepared with that against our existing offerings, existing curriculum. We also then moved into more primary data collection, where we had a questionnaire executed with our students and members, where we were trying to understand in a more general viewpoint where they want us to move. We also had a number of breakfast meetings with CEOs, CFOs, and HR personalities, because HR people are important because they are the ones who recruit. So we wanted to understand from which viewpoints are they looking at future accounting professionals. We then went and interviewed about 8 different managing directors of prominent companies in Sri Lanka individually. So we went to those kind of lens to understand who should be 2013 and beyond accountant. Now, once we recognize who that party should be, we had to put words into place, right? And then rather than just putting words, We then decided, no, take companies. Nowadays, you have visions, you have missions, and they don't stop at that point. They have value sets now, right? If you take CA Sri Lanka also, they have a vision, they have a mission, and as a consultant for education, I need to follow those. But the value set of that institution comes from the education fundamentals we put in place. So we were not going to put a value set for the curriculum, but rather we identified the word promises, right? And it's very equivalent in the corporate world. In a company, we have values. These are our values. We follow the values. Same story. These are our promises for our curriculum and for our education delivery, and we will follow those. So once we recognize through our thorough analysis of external to internal to cross where we want to be, we then quickly realize when you sum up all that analysis, learnings, our understandings, we had to make sure we retain our trust and try to amplify that trust as much as possible. We also had to make sure that we are strategic in whatever we do, right? And more than anything, the last 10 years or so, it was clear that companies are demanding, and all these people we talked with were demanding more of the ability to connect different discorded dots when they make decisions. And connecting dots for us is storytelling, right? Of course, one may look at the word storytelling in a very low way, like a teledrama storytelling. No, for us, storytelling is connecting the dots when we do business, when we make decisions, because there is no way companies can now run in silos, marketing, IT. Everything needs to come together. So that's where the storytelling part comes. So that connecting of dots, we saw it as stories or storytelling. So the word trusted strategic storytelling became a critical promise that we were now going to work around in terms of developing the curriculum. And then we combine those three words into more of a tagline where this wording came, where trust drives strategy. Because CA Sri Lanka, CAs in general are trusted, right? Trusted for their technical acumen, trusted for their ethical stance, trusted as for their delivery and performance, right? However, that trust alone obviously is not going to drive the future. The driving of future will come with our coding with being strategy. So where trust drives strategy. So trust will not remain, will now drive strategy, right? And stories where the dots will get connected will make sure the leadership roles that our accountants hold will grow into future. Stories will inspire not just running businesses, but transformation of businesses to the modern businesses that everyone wants to see with their enterprises. So that's how these terms came together.
Wow, the fact that we got to know the background story of how this curriculum was developed is exactly why we are here. Because who better to speak to than the creator himself, like I mentioned before. So, thank you for sharing how this curriculum actually came together, which actually gave a lot of our students the idea behind why this was put together. And also, so you mentioned that you spoke to a lot of leading figures during this process. There are a lot of students that have shared their concerns about how they're worried if it's too much for them, because they hear a lot about it, but what if it's too much is the real question. What is your advice on that?
I think that's quite normal. If I am told that something different that I am not used to is coming up, I don't think I will just run towards it. Chances are I will run further away from that. So it's normal. First thing I think you should recognize is that if you're feeling so, It is not abnormal. But with all due credit to CA Sri Lanka president, council members, to education committee members, they all understood that if we are going to just go with the old curriculum, old ways of looking, when the world is moving so fast, our qualification, our profession will struggle to survive, right? So you have to understand, if you are just going to think about the now situation where future is going to move in a crazy way, obviously it is. You could see with AI to how jobs are changing, to what skill sets are required, to all those changes. If we don't change, maybe now it can be comfortable, it may be comfortable, but future things will become extremely difficult. So you have to understand, this old saying is there: no pain, no gain.
Yes.
Right? So I am not telling this is going to be a painful thing. If you
Yeah.
really look at it, what has happened is, lot of the subjects, we had about 20 plus subjects, they have come down to 15 nicely, right? And you could see very nicely, each level you have 4 subjects, then you go into a finishing subject called capstone, where things will come together. Again, 4 subjects, capstone. Likewise, each level, business to corporate to strategy. Now, if you think of the old curriculum, you had a IT pillar running separately, you had a communication pillar running separately, you had exams. None of those are there, right? Now, those are there as on demand learning, right? In your own pace, you can learn those, you have material available. Their connectivity is there with the capstones in terms of getting marks, right? But that is in the mainstream testing. The other thing is, if you think about the old curriculum, you had a separate management subject that was not really connected with the core competencies of a chartered accountant. Now, this time the capstone marries all the core competencies together. In addition to that, in the old syllabus, when you climb up business, and we have taken concerted effort to ensure we don't change the names of the levels, so that people remain in somewhat comfortable levels. The old curriculum also had business, corporate, and strategy. But at strategy level, in the old one, you may know, all of a sudden a case study came. Now, all of a sudden, you have to do all sort of analysis, and you are never used to that because you've never done it before. See, this time, nicely, first level itself, a case study appropriate to that level is there in the name of capstone, right? The word case study is not very appropriate for what we are doing, because there are a lot of skills that are coming in. I'm sure you will have questions on that, so I'll address that later on. But see, what happens is, what you see as a model in the business level, it nicely get replicated in the next level. So you are going to do something you are so much used to at an obvious higher level. Again, when you go to the next one, strategy level, same model will replicate. So unlike the old syllabus where newer things will appear out of nowhere, you need to get used to, because you need to remember, you're not just looking at the business level, you also need to finish off corporate, you need to finish off strategic. So if you're going to run on a model which you are so much familiar, it will become much easier for you, because it's not the first time you are going to do this. By the time you're at strategy level, it is the third time you are doing it, right? So we expect, once the initial hesitance towards something new, which is very normal. I mean, who likes change? I don't like. I'm sure you don't like. But once we pass that and we realize, no, this is factor life, right? And this is to ensure that we remain relevant as accountants into the future, not in some obscurity, then we have no choice. So by compulsion, you'll have to go. And once you go in, you see that a nice structure is now getting repeated, right? I'm sure you will over time feel, okay, this is more comfortable, then out of nowhere things appear in like in the old stories. So that's our expectation.
Absolutely wonderful. And since you mentioned about the capstone a little bit, sir, we want to touch up a little bit on that as well, because especially on the capstone, a lot of students are wondering why it's introduced, and to what level, and is it going to take more time compared to what they are doing right now.
Yeah.
So let's speak a little bit about that if possible. And if we are talking about the capstone, there is also a structure like you mentioned. Can we talk a little bit about the highlights of that, the structure, the structure, as well as the different levels of marking? I know you mentioned this a little bit during the CA Sri Lanka video as well.
Yes.
Can we elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah. I think there are multiple questions within what you asked. So let me try to dissect each and then try to talk. I think the first thing that I need to confess is, okay, for most of you, Capstone may look a fancy name, complete new name. But in qualifications globally, the word Capstone is there, right? And the word capstone can mean lot of things. For us, it's more of a finishing program, right? When we do something, we learn, we practice, and we have a finishing touch. For us, capstone is that finishing touch, right? First level, business level, means we are targeting an entry level accountant. That is our profile. You remember I told you who we want to achieve and we
Yes.
work, right? What we have done is we have thought, okay, eventually in a life cycle of a future accountant, what is the maximum point that accountant or the entry accountant will get into? That maximum point would be CFO, CEO material, right? Or even MD. In other words, what we call CSU, corporate level, highest level. Now, if a normal party takes, let's say, 15 years to become a CFO or a CEO, what we did was we looked at our qualification and realized we have 3 layers. Now, eventually we want the party to be at that CEO, CFO level, and we know 15 years. So, since we have 3 levels, we then divide the 15-year timeline to 5-year time slots. So, in the last 5 years, we are grooming somebody to be the CEO, CFO. But before that, the 5 years prior to that, we are grooming that fellow to be a financial accountant, right? And before that, in the first 5 years, we are looking at an entry-level associate accounting party kind of profile. So when you think about this, on that example of 15 years, so the first 5 years for us is the business level. The second 5 years of an accountant's career for us would be the corporate level. The last 5 years where that party will go for that highest level would be the strategy level. So when we are looking at the first 5 years, which is our business levels, this is the practical thinking behind it. We know we are pitching somebody to be excellent material to be an entry level accountant. Now that excellent material, what type of skills should be there? So we know financial accounting, reporting, our critical skills. Trust comes from that. Management accounting, critical skill, right? Audit assurance, critical skills. Business law, tax, critical skills, right? So those parts all are critical. But when we work in a company as an entry-level accountant, it is unlikely today I am doing financial accounting, tomorrow I do budget, so I am doing management accounting. Next day there is a customer issue, so I need to be part of that. So now I am business law. No, we don't do like that. right? All this comes together when we are working. So we want to get our students used to that real life world experience where those four things coming together. So the finishing part is how would those four parts come together? So in the business level, those four parts coming together will be the business capstone, which is targeted towards a practicing entry level accountant. In other words, business level, the four subjects that are there for the technical knowledge, and the enabling knowledge is also there. Enabling would be digital, data, sustainability stuff is also there inbuilt in this. Once you learn those four subjects, their application aspect is what we try to teach, train, and give the exposure and experience to our students via the capstone. So business level, BCAP means, or business capstone means that entry level accountants everyday life, I would say, right? And when you go next level, again to corporate level, right? That is at a SBU level, strategic business unit level. Accountant, okay, financial accounting, reporting, management accounting, audit, tax, business law, all that knowledge. But then that SBU level accountant everyday work is not going to be on those tags. They will all come together. So how would those things come together? That experience, exposure, all that we are looking to give through the corporate level capstone. Right? Okay. Same story at strategy level, where the highest level, okay, this is what you are going to do. This is going to be your application. Application reflection comes to the capstone. So the capstones are actually done to take people from their technical mastery into application mastery, right? And we also know students at CA, some goes on to finish off everything, some may not, right? That depends. Sometimes their life choices are such that they may move to different areas, family commitments. Some they may struggle even, to be truth be told, right? But our qualification is done in such a manner, even somebody who finishes off at business level, they get a solid qualification called CBA, yes, right? That solid qualification is going to ensure that as an entry level accountant, that party can work, not just at current circumstances, but future demands also. And that preparation will be done by the business capstone. And at the second level, corporate level capstone, CCAP, will ensure that even if you exit at that, we have CCP, CA qualification, right, at that level. So that will nicely allow that party to go and work with that capstone exposure. Same story at the highest level. So to sum up the thought process behind capstone, as I said, it's not completely new. Lot of qualifications I have in capstone. So for example, at my own department at marketing management, after second year degree, we have a capstone. Right? If you look at the Canadian Chartered Accounting qualifications, they have capstones, right? But our capstone is different, because we've exactly identified at each level, out of the subjects they have learned, what would be the application. Because each capstone is having separate curriculum content with learning outcomes. So that's one. The other, we are also inside the capstone bringing in 4 skill types. Yes. So we can't just call it a case study, because multiple skills are coming on board. You have the technical, you have the enabling, you also have the power and integrity skills, all 4 coming together and getting tested those. We also have in between the pre-seen and the unseen a verbal pitch. Yes. Right? I'm sure you have enough and more questions on those later on, so we come to those later on. But see, because it brings together what you've learned into application, because it brings together different skills and it has multiple components, it's a larger finishing program at each level. Thus we call it capstones, BCAP, CCAP and SCAP.
So that is what Capstone is for you, actually. And speaking about the capstones, now, like you mentioned, we have B cap, C cap, and S cap. Let's talk a little bit about the structure of each once again, because, like you mentioned, there is a case study, but verbal pitch. Business level students ලා ගොඩක් අහන ප්‍රශ්නයක් තමයි අපි verbal pitch එක කොහොමද කරන්නේ? අපිට prepare වෙන්න පුළුවන්ද
On the
මේකට?
process.
එතකොට අපි මේක කොහොමද prepare වෙන්නේ? What's your advice on
So
that?
I'll firstly answer in English and then also do a bit of a Sinhalese
Yes,
on it.
please.
I think business level, we obviously fresh students. Surely they are not used to anything like this, and rightfully they may be most probably more scared than anyone else. I'm sure the others are also to some level. I think the first thing that you will have to understand is whether it is B cap, C cap or S cap, it's the same structure that we are running. However, there are reliefs available for business level students. The skill component we are looking at is slightly lower, and that commensurates the job profile also as an entry level accountant. So I'll go into a bit more depth later on. And the skill component climbs up to higher percentages when it moves to corporate and strategy level. But before talking about the differences between the different caps, what are the salient features of cap or caps regardless of the levels? In other words, business, corporate or strategic, all capstones are having similar features, right? So that's that repetitiveness that we also want our students to get used to. In the capstones, we have actually three components mainly, right? One is what we call a pre-scene,
Yes.
right?
So we have the pre-scene.
Yes.
Okay.
So the pre-scene is actually going to tell you who you are in this particular company, what is this company about, and give you a lot of information, right? The reasoning to do pre-scene is very simple. Some people go clearly overboard on pre-scene analysis. But the purpose of pre-scene is, imagine the company the pre-scene is written around is a hospital. And you work in a hospital and I am not, right? Now, clearly, if questions are going to come from a hospital, you will have advantage and I will be at a disadvantage. We don't want that to happen, right? So you want to have parity. Regardless of your background, your work experience, whether your parents are working in a hospital or not, what needs to be known about the hospital, that minimum amount is very nicely given in the pre-scene. So we expect students to read the pre-scene, analyze the pre-scene, if needed, go more on that industry and do their own research to better be accustomed to that particular industry, right? So that's the purpose of pre-scene, so that there is parity with all the students, right? Once that is given to you, and we expect that will happen roughly about 12 weeks prior to the final exam, right? Give or take, that can slightly increase. I don't think that will get reduced because ample time needs to be given. So you'll get that. You'll have enough and more time to go through it, roughly around 10 plus pages, somewhere there. Depending on the level, the page number can increase. That is obvious, depending on the skill set that we are expecting people to demonstrate. So from that pre-scene, at the time of the pre-scene being released, you will also be released with, or you will be also given with a set of documents on verbal pitch. So you will get the documents, pre-scene, verbal pitch, both at the same time. The verbal pitch document will explain to you what this verbal pitch is about, right? Already, I think the pilot papers are going out. If you have not got, you will get those very soon. So the verbal pitch document will tell what is it. It's about looking at the pre-scene. We would have given you certain leads where you can pick a lead and do an analysis. And you will have to make a presentation In the first level, of course, it will be a self-recorded presentation that you will upload into the learning management system of CA. Second level, same story. In the third level, you have to face a Viva panel, right? Or a Viva panel, simply. I'll come to that one later on, but verbal pitch expectation is whether you could identify a particular issue, right, where you could say, why did you prioritize that? Right? And in any company, there can be a lot of issues. Why did you recognize that? Right? Why is that an issue? What can the company do regarding the issue? What outcomes can we expect? Right? All that you are going to put into, in the business level, only 3 slides maximum you can prepare. There had been a lot of arguments on can we have more slides and all that. No, because see, if you're going to have only 5 minutes, you can't have 10 slides.
Yes.
Right? And it is also important into those 3 slides, you organize your thoughts. The slides are a support for you to express your analysis, your ideas, your thoughts, your justifications. Right? So it's a skill that we are trying to train, because that's the kind of skill that is needed in the real world also. And the good thing is, at the business level, even if you use bit of Singrisi, we'll be okay.
So
Right?
they don't have to be specifically
Oh no, we are
fluent.
not looking at Queen's language as such. We are not in Queen's language. No, if you closely analyze my English, you will find quite a lot of mistakes. I mean, that's quite okay as far as we are concerning, at least, or I am concerning, because it is about the ability to converse. It is the ability to communicate. Right? It is not the language being polished like at a posh level. So what we want is the future chartered accountants not to go in front of people and when they are supposed to talk and they will just froze, right? And then obviously a very shameful scenario for the whole fraternity. No, we don't. What we want is to train you from day one to build that skill set. right? මේක සිංහලෙන් කිව්වොත් ඔයගොල්ලොන් බය වෙලා ඉන්නවා නම් මේක එහෙම දෙයක් නෙමෙයි. ඇත්තටම අපි ඉගෙන ගන්න කාලේ වැරදි කරා කියලා කවුරුත් hina වෙන්නේ නැහැ. එහෙම hina වෙනවා නම් ඇත්තටම පිස්සු වෙන්න. right? ඒතර දැන් මම ෆවුන්ඩේෂන් ළමෙක් ලෙස මට එනවා කම්පැනි එක එන විස්තර ගොඩක්. එතකොට මගේ මම වැඩ කරන කම්පැනිය මොක වුණත් ඒ විස්තර ටික ඇති මට ඒ ඉන්ඩස්ට්‍රිය ගැන තේරුම් ගන්න. මට ඕනනම් තව ඒක ඇනලයිස් කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒක ප්‍රීසීන් එකේ බලාපොරොත්තුව ඒක. එහෙම නැතුව ඒකෙන් එන ප්‍රශ්න ගොඩක් අහයි කියන එක නෙමෙයි, මේ බෑග්ග්‍රවුන්ඩ් එක දැනගන්න කැමති. right? එතකොට ඊළඟට මේ ප්‍රීසීන් එකත් එක්ක මේ verbal pitch කියන දෙන එක. ඉතින් verbal pitch කියන වචනය අමාරු නම් හිතාගන්න එක ප්‍රසන්ටේෂන් එකක් කියලා. හරි? ඉතින් අපි pitch එකක් කරන්නේ. pitch කරන්න පුළුවන් verbally by writing no different ways. So these are verbal. pitch එකක් කියන්නේ අපි අපිව ප්‍රමාණයකට මාකට් කරගන්නවා කියන එක. මේ pitch කියන වචනේ ඒකත් වැදගත්. දැන් මාව මාකට් කරගන්නේ කොහමද? මගේ දැනුමේ, මගේ එක්ස්ප්ලනේෂන් පවර් එකේ, මගේ රැෂනලයිස් කරන්න පුළුවන් පවර් එකකින්. එතකොට මම මේකේ එන්නේ, මේකේ තියෙනවා මේ verbal pitch කියන ડોකියුමන්ට් එක මොනවද කරන්න ඕන කියලා. ඔයාලට තියෙනවා issues පාක් විතර, ඒකෙන් කැමති එකක් අඳුර ගන්න පුළුවන්. අරගෙන ඒකෙන් තමයි ඇනලිසිස් එක ප්‍රීසීන් එක කරන්න ඕන. So that's another way of democratization of learning. right? We are not telling ඔක්කොම එකක් කරන්න ඕනේ. ඔයා කැමති නැත්නම් operational issues දිහා බලන්න, ඔයාට පුළුවන් financial issue එකක් දිහා බලන්න. ඒක කැමති නැත්නම් ඔයාට management issue එකක් බලතැයි working capital වගේ. right? ඉතින් ඒ විදිහට අපි options පහක් විතර දීලා තියෙනවා first level එක. ඔක level එක වෙනස් වෙද්දී ඒ options ටිකක් අඩු වෙනවා. මොකද higher level එකේ බලන්න ඕන higher end එකේ නිසා option ගොඩක් නැහැ. right? But at least business level එකේ ඔයාට choice එකකුත් තියෙනවා. ඒතකොට ඔයා ඒ choice එකක් අඳුරගෙන ඔයාගේ ප්‍රසන්ටේෂන් එකේ මම හැදුවා නම් ඒකේ ගයිඩ් එක ඔක්කොම තියෙනවා verbal pitch එකේ. පළවෙනි එකේ මම කියයි ඇයි මම මේ ඉෂුව එක තෝරගත්තේ. මෙන්න හේතු. මම මේක කටින් කියනවා. හරි? මේ ඉෂුව එක නිසා මේ ආයතනයේ මේ වෙලාව වෙලා තියෙනවා. මෙන්න දෙවෙනි ස්ලයිඩ් එක. මේ ප්‍රශ්න ටික විසඳන්න මෙන්න අපිට කරන්න පුළුවන් දේවල්. මෙන්න. හරි? ඉතින් මේ ටික ලස්සනට ඇනිමේටඩ්ලි ඔයාට එක්ස්ප්ලেইন කරගන්න පුළුවන්. ඔයා පැෂනට් කියලා පෙන්නනවා නම් මේක සිංහලද ඉංග්‍රීසිද කියන එකත් නෙමෙයි එච්චරම ප්‍රශ්නේ. Of course we want you to do it in English. right? Because the argument comes, how come people go to Japan or Italy will speak fluent Japanese or Italian within couple of weeks, right? Because necessity is mother of all inventions, right? You invent yourself to be like this if there's a necessity. What do I mean by this? Capable of communicating in a language that is now a necessity. මේ හැම දෙයකම ඔයගොල්ලෝ තේරුම් ගන්න ඕන. අපිට අපි සිංහලෙන් කියන වංගු දදා ඉන්නකල් අපි මේක හදාගන්නේ නැහැ පුතාලා කියලා. ඒ නිසා ඔයගොල්ලෝ මේ ඔයගොල්ලොන් එක තරහකට හදපු දෙයක් නෙමෙයි. ඔයගොල්ලොන්ට තියෙන opportunities වැඩි කරන්න හදපු දෙයක්. එතකොට ඕගොල්ලොන් මුලින් අපිට තේරෙනවා වේවුල කරයි. හැබැයි ඔයාම නම් ඔයා රෙකෝඩින් එකක් කරන්නේ. ඔයාට පුළුවන් කණ්ණාඩියක් ඉස්සරහා මේක 1000 පාරක් ප්‍රැක්ටිස් කරන්න ඕන. රෙකෝඩින් එක 1000 පාරක් කරන්න ඕන. අපිට වැදගත් පුතාලා දුවලා මේ එෆර්ට් එක ගොඩ යන්න තියෙන ඌමනා එයාට අවශ්‍ය පරිසරය තමයි අපි මේ capstones වලිනුත් හදලා තියෙන්නේ. So you had the pre-scene, you had the verbal pitch, then unseen කියලා තියෙනවා. ඇත්තම විභාගෙට ගියාම එතනදී ඔයාට you will get 4 questions with certain additional information. ඒවත් හරි practical. දැන් ඉස්සර වගේ නෙමෙයි. දැන් අපි කම්පැනි වලත් ගොඩක් අය WhatsApp වලින් තමයි එන්නේ දේවල්. ඒතකොට එක ප්‍රශ්නයක් එන්න පුළුවන් WhatsApp එකක් ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා මට මේ වගේ වැඩේ ඕන මේක කරලා දෙන්න කිව්වම ඔයා දැන් ඒක කරලා දෙන්න ඕන. right? ඒ විදිහට තමයි මේ ප්‍රශ්නේ. සමහර ඒවා මීටින් එකකට කතා කරලා මීටින් එකේ ගිහිල්ලා කතා කරන ගම let's do this. So please make sure you prepare this කියනවා. ආන් දැන් අපි ඒක කරනවා. එතන මේ real ලෝකේ simulation එකක් තමයි මේ capstone එකේ වෙන්නේ. ඒතකොට පළවෙනි capstone එක like business capstone what happens is entry level accountant කෙනෙක් වැඩ කරද්දි වෙන වැඩ ටික තමයි මෙතන වෙන්නේ. right? ඉතින් මට මගේ boss කියනවා හරි පුතා ඔයා දැන් presentation එකක් කරන්න මේක ඔයාට විනාඩි 5යි දෙන්නේ කියලා. එහෙම තමයි ඇත්තටම ඔකෙත් වෙන්නේ. විනාඩි 5 ගණන් දෙන්නේ presentation කරන්න. ඉතින් මම slide පොඩ්ඩකින් මේක කරන්න ඕනේ. ඒක අපි slide 20ක් 30ක් දුන්නා නම් කවදාවත් ඔයා ඒක ඉගෙන ගන්න. පොඩි slide ගානකින් කොහොමද ඔයාව market කරගන්නේ? right? ඊළඟ ලෙවල් එකේදී බිස්නස් ලෙවල් එකේදී ඉෂුව එක ටිකක් ලොකු වැඩි. ඒතකොට ස්ලයිඩ් 3කින් බෑ. ඒතකොට ස්ලයිඩ් 4කින් හෝ 5කින් කොහොමද කරන්නේ? ඊළඟ ලෙවල් එකේ ඉෂුව එක තවත් ලොකුයි. අනික ඒකේ වයිවා එකක් තියෙන. එතකොට ඔයා CFOsලා 3 දෙනෙක් ඉස්සරහා ගිහලා මේක ප්‍රසන්ට් කරන්න. ඉතින් මේකේ පරාපොරොත්තු ඔයගලන්ට තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ. එකක් තමයි ලංකාවේ ලොකුම CFOලා 3 දෙනෙක් ඉස්සරහා ඔයාගේ ස්කිල් සෙට් එක පෙන්නුවා කියන්නේ එදාම ඔයාව පර්මනන්ට් රස්සාවකට ගන්න ඔක්කොටම. හරි. එතකොට එතනට ඔයා නිකන් එන්නේ නැහැ. ඔයා බිස්නස් ලෙවල් එක corporate level එකේ තර රෙකෝඩ් කරලා ඔයා හදාගත්ත ස්කිල් සෙට් එක තමයි අර උඩට අතන්ට එන්නේ. ඉතින් අර ඔයා හොර වැඩ කර ඉඳලා දැන් සමහර අපෙන් කියනවා ඉතින් මේක රෙකෝඩ් කරනවා නම් වෙන අය දාලා රෙකෝඩ් කරන්න බෑනේ. ඉතින් මූණ තියෙන්න එපා ඉස්සරහ. හරි. ඕක දිහා කොලයක් දිහා බලන්න. ඉතින් මෙහෙමයි. කොලයක් දිහා බලන් කළත් ඔයාව අපි ඉස්සරහට ගෙනල්ලා කතා කරන එකම අපි දකිනවා ජයග්‍රහණයක්. ඒක ටික වැඩි කරගෙන ගිහලා ලොකුම ජයග්‍රහණයට ගෙනියනවා කියන මානසිකත්වය තමයි අපි මේක දිහා බලන්නේ. So I apologize for my Sinhalese sometimes because I keep on mixing up. But I hope that made it quite clear as to our motive. And it's not that we are some alien set of people who expect things which are very unrealistic. We've also been students long time back. We feel your pain. We have also gone through curriculum changes when we were students, right? We try our level best to smoothen those changes and the impact. But above all, it is about when you become a chartered accountant and go, you are at a place where no one can beat you, right? That's the most critical thing, where you can hold your head up and say, I am a chartered accountant from CA Sri Lanka and I have a skill set that even AI cannot bring. That's what we are actually looking to do out of all of this. So don't be short-sighted. මේ පොඩි දේ දිහා බලන්න එපා. මේ පළවෙනි මාසයේ මොකක්ද වෙන්නේ? පොඩ්ඩක් painful වෙයි. but එතනින් එහාට මේ එකම මොඩල් එක ලස්සන්ට උඩට යද්දි ඔයාලටම තේරෙයි this like second nature.
Yes, so this is literally a stepping stone for all of them. And also, Dr. Patabendige, I want to ask you now, there are a set of skill sets that all of them will have to face, especially power, integrity, professional judgment. Are these all self-assessments? Are they all online? or is it like you mentioned, it's on demand?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more
Yeah.
about
So
that?
you remember when we were talking before, the very first question was about the trust strategy and storytelling.
Yes.
Now, those are our promises. So, how did we operationalize those promises? We realized trust comes from our technical skills. We have to be solid in our technical skills. So, that's where the financial accounting, management accounting, audit assurances, taxation, business law, and all that comes in. So, those are our core, bread and butter, right? The other part where trust comes is what we call ethics, or in other words, what we call integrity, what we stand, so how we conduct ourselves. So the trust word we operationalize through two types of skills: technical skills and integrity skills.
Yeah.
And then the strategy part, we realize future strategy is all about digital data sustainability and governance.
Yes.
Those then we put together, calling them enabling skills. Now, don't get drowned by these big words, but enabling, we saw it as what will enable somebody into the future to thrive. As an accountant, if I cannot be driven by digital data or lead digital data scenarios in organizations, I don't think I will be able to survive, right? And think of sustainability. I mean, that's now a core in our profession. I cannot really work on that space. It will be very difficult for me to uh, survive into the future or thrive in future. So the word trust, of course, we had, as I said before, coming from technical and integrity skills, and then strategy, of course, came from what we call enabling skills. In other words, those business skills such as digital data, sustainability, governance. And then the stories part came from what we call power skills.
Yeah.
Stuff like communication, teamwork, business acumen, problem solving, those, right? So these three promises then got expanded to those skills. Of those skills, the technical and enabling skills are there together in the learning outcomes of each syllabus or each subject syllabus, right? For example, we would have, let's say, if it is financial accounting and reporting, we will have some standard, and then we will talk that standard and sustainability, how that standard and digital will work, how that standard and data will work, right? So the technical parts and the enabling parts are there together, very nicely brought together, how future world will operate. So that's in the learning outcomes under each subject. The power skills and the integrity skills sit separate in each level when they are doing their core four subjects, right? So they will sit separate. And where are they sitting? They are designated as on-demand learning. In other words, ඔයාට කැමති වෙලාවක ගිහිල්ලා ඒක ඉගෙන ගන්න පුළුවන්. කොහොමද ඉගෙන ගන්නෙ? CA Sri Lanka එකේ සූට් එකක් හදලා තියෙයි within their learning management system. මේ skills හැම එකටම වෙනම videos, වෙනම learning material, mind maps, exercises. ඒතර ඔයා ඒවා ටික ගිහිල්ලා කරනවා. ඔයාගේ pace එකට ඉගෙන ගන්නවා. Right? So ඒව කරන්නේ අර main subject හතර වෙලාවෙ නෙමෙයි. Not when you are doing your core subjects. Those are to be done when you are doing your capstone. Because the power and integrity skills are reserved with the real world application part. Right? But unlike the old syllabus where you had exams for these skills, no, you don't. Right? Maximum that will happen is power and integrity. දැන් ඒවා හදාගෙන යනවා. දැන් ඒ ටික ඔයගොල්ලන්ට මේ learning management system එකේ ලැබෙයි. ඒවා වීඩියෝ තියෙනවා. ඔයා බලනවා. ඒකේ ප්‍රශ්න 5ක් 10ක් තියෙනවා just to test your knowledge. ඒකේ 150ට වඩා ගත්තොත් අපි කියනවා micro credits තියෙනවා කියලා. ඔයගොල්ලන් දන්නවා ඇති LinkedIn එකේ වගේ නිතර ඔය කට්ටිය badges දානවා. I completed introduction to this. I completed introduction to that. So our objective is අපේ students ලට වැඩිපුර යාළුවව market කරන්න ඒ වගේ badges ලබා දෙන්න. එතකොට හිතන්නකො communication skill වල business level එකේ ඒ තියෙන එක බලලා ඒකේ තියෙන ප්‍රශ්න ටිකක් answer කරලා ඒකේ තියෙන activity ටිකක් online කරාම badge එකක් එනවා. ඒ badge එක connect වෙනවා වගේ LinkedIn එකට.
Okay.
Right? ඒ විදිහට badges connect වෙනවා. So you get to market your own skills that you accumulate. but වෙලා තියෙන ඉතින් නිකන් badge ආව පළියට ඒක ටෙස්ට් වෙන්නේ නැත්නම් ඕක කවුරුත් වැඩියම සීරියස් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඉතින් දැන් මේක සීරියස් කිරීමේ ලොකු අවශ්‍යතාවයක් තියෙනවා. ඒක ඔයගොල්ලන්ට තේරෙන්නේ නැති if you are going to survive into the future and excel into the future. So in the capstone what will happen is inside the verbal pitch the presentation is assessed on skills what we call a rubric. ඒකේ තියෙනවා කොටු වලට කොහොමද ඔයාගේ ස්කිල් ටික බලන්න ඕන කියලා. ඔයාලගේ ස්පෙසිමන්ස් වල ඒවා දැක්කේ නැත්නම් ඔය පයිලට් පේපර්ස් වල ඉස්සරහට. එතකොට ඒක ඇසෙස් වෙන්නේ අර power and integrity skills එතන අපි බලනවා. Right? And in addition to that when you go into the unseen, right? Unseen at business level 20% of the marks will be allocated for power and integrity. In the corporate level, 30% will be allocated for power and integrity, and at strategy level, 40% will be allocated. එතකොට අර power and integrity කියන ටික අර online suits වල තියෙනවා. ඔයා ඒ ටික බලනවා. ඔයාගේ page එකට මේවා කරනවා. ඔයා badge earn කරගන්නවා. ඒක අරන් ඔයාට market කරගන්න පුළුවන්. හැබැයි ඒවා නොකරොත් ඔයාට අතන ලොකු ලකුණු ගානක ප්‍රශ්නයක් එනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ අපි කරලා තියෙන එක capstone එකට දැමීම තුලින් අනිවාර්යෙන් කරන්නම වෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ ප්‍රමාණික ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදයේ තිබුණා වගේම තමයි ඒක ඒ ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදී එක්සිකියුට් නොකරොත් ඒක පාවිච්චි නොකරොත් ඔයාගේ ෆ්‍රැන්චයිස් එක එක්සිකියුට් නොකරොත් එයාට ගැටලුවක් ඇති වෙනවා අතන. හැබැයි ඔයගොල්ලෝ තේරුම් ගන්න ඕන I'll give you a specimen also now for example. Now the power and integrity skills that we are expecting, we will specify in the unseen. In the verbal pitch, how your marking grid or rubric is given to you with the verbal pitch. ඒගොල්ලෝ හරි ලේසි මේ හංගල ගන්න කිසිම දෙයක් නැහැ. verbal pitch document එකේම තියෙනවා ඔයා ලකුණු ගන්න කොහොමද කියලා. ඉතින් ඔයා ඒ ලකුණු ගන්න විදියට ඔයාගේ slides ටික prepare කරගන්න. එච්චරයි. and unseen එකෙත් හැම ප්‍රශ්නෙටම verbal pitch power skills integrity කීයද දෙන්නේ කියලා කියලා තියෙනවා. Now, if you take an example, let's say you have a question on management accounting, right? Where it's about budgeting, right? So you do something on budgeting and you have all the answers being put as for technical and enabling skills. And then you have been told that for teamwork, there is marks, right? So what you need to then do is a budgeting ඔක්කොම technical කතා ටික කතා කරන් පස්සේ ඔයා කියන්න ඕන බජට් එකක් හදද්දි මේක තනියෙන් හදන්න බෑ බජට් එක ටීම් එකක් ලෙස එකතු වෙලා මේ නම්බර්ස් අපි රිෆ්ලෙක්ට් කරන්න ඕන assumptions දිහා ආයි බලන්න ඕන කරලා polish කරන්න ඕන ඔන්න ඔයා demonstrate කරන අර ටීම් එකක අවශ්‍යතාවය right now let's say in another one in the same question we say for business acumen you have some marks දැන් අපි ඔබ ස්පෙસિෆයි කරලා කියනවා එතන ප්‍රශ්න ඔයගොල්ලෝ ස්පෙසිමන් එක ගිහලා බැලුවොත් ඔයගොල්ලන්ට ඒක තේරෙයි එතනදී අපිට මේ ළමයා කරන්න ඕන දැන් බජට් ගැන තියෙන normal කතා ටික කතා කරලා කියන්න ඕන මෙහිමයි හැබැයි if you look at global scenario a lot of the budgets that were prepared because of let's say Ukrainian war all the ingredients went up and the assumptions went wrong so that meant that it was very difficult for companies to achieve budgets thus it is important that we also forecast potential geopolitical scenarios and ensure we inbuilt such thought processes into our future plan. ඔන්න ඔයා demonstrate කරන ඔයා ලෝකේ ගැන දැනුමක් business ලෝකේ ගැන දැනුමක් තියෙනවා. ඒකට වෙනම ලකුණු. ඇත්තම කියනවා නම් අපි මේ dissect කරලා කැලි කැලි කිව්වට මේ කරලා තියෙන්නේ ඔයා උත්තරයක් ගෙනල්ලා ඒක reasonable වෙලා ලෝකෙත් එක්ක ඒ උත්තරේ connect කරලා කතා කරන ටිකට වැඩිපුර ලකුණු සම්බන්ධ. That's what power and integrity means. Right? දැන් අනිත් පැත්තේ ඉන්ටිග්‍රිටි කියන්නකො දැන් ඉන්ටිග්‍රිටි කිව්වාම දැන් සමහරවිට බජට් හදද්දී අපි උමනාටට බජට් වල පුෂ් කරනවා මිනිස්සු. ඒතර සමහර මිනිස්සු මානසිකව වැටෙනවා. Yes. Right? මිනිස්සු රස්සාවලුත් දාලා යනවා සමහරවිට ටාගට් ලොකු වැඩි වෙලා. Yeah. So if you could talk and tell it is also important when we set budgets what impact that other employees may have where targets are very unrealistic. you are demonstrating an ethical behavior point of view. So integrity line එක එතන ලකුණක් හම්බෙයි. ඒක අපි හැබැයි කියනවා අපිට මේ පැත්තෙන් පෙන්නන්න අපිට මෙතන වාට ලකුණු තියෙනවා.
Okay.
So this whole story is to take people out of just looking at things technically, right? But to look at it in a more pragmatic manner. Because when you are looking at answers, it's not about the right answer alone. It's about the answer that is best justifiable, best logical. That's where we want to take our future chartered accountants. So that's where all these capstones are looking to marry the different types of skills together.
Wonderful. Very well understood, sir. Thank you for sharing all that details with us. And since you mentioned about the practical aspect of it, Dr. Patabendige, we at Infinity Learning Space, almost all our lecturers have over a decade of experience in the corporate industry. In a lot of real world industry experience has been included. With such experience, there will be a lot of discussions and real world stories and experience that is shared with our students while teaching. Why do you think that such real world stories are so crucial with this new curriculum?
Right. I think now to add on to what you mentioned about people who are at Infinity and the kind of people that you're bringing together to deliver this new curriculum, I believe most of your lecturers, even I know personally, I know that they have been in the industry for years and years, very well experienced people. And I think that experience is critical with a qualification that we are now trying to build here, where at each level ends with an experience part, application part. Now, you're not going to have people who have never properly worked in the corporate world, in the industry, really capable of delivering that application aspect. Because if you look at business level or corporate level or even strategy level, the capstones, I think there's a topic in each of those called connecting dots, if I remember correctly. And there is nowhere in the world in a curriculum called connecting dots. The connecting dots topic came because there were a number of industry specialists who worked with me in terms of developing those content, where they realize at business level connecting dots are different to that of corporate level, and then at strategy level it's more different. So those connecting aspects are all identified as learning outcomes and put. So if you take that as an example, if you don't have the industry exposure, experience, and years of experience like your panel, I am sure they will struggle to show people, show students how those dots will ever get connected. I mean, you can talk, but sharing the experience and really showing how it happens in a classroom environment would be the ideal scenario for students to learn that application power that we expect from our students within this new curriculum.
Yes, absolutely, sir. And like you mentioned, with the relevant experience, having the relevant experience is truly crucial, which is why we have also brought in separate experts in the areas of digital and sustainability as well to teach our students and to give our students the absolute best. So, with that, sir, we want to ask you lots of advice for our students. Lots of encouragement is needed. You gave us a brilliant idea on why this was created, why this is literally a stepping stone for them. So, as concluding remarks, what advice do you have for anyone that is still scared to face this new curriculum?
Right. I think if you aspire to be a chartered accountant, which you are, and that is why you have got into CA Sri Lanka qualification, and you're at the best place, future will always have challenges, and we want chartered accountants who can take challenges head on, right? We want chartered accountants who see challenges as opportunities to shine, to show who you are, why you're different, why you should be hired, and why you should be paid more than other people, right? So this whole qualification, these changes are also a stepping stone for you to change your outlook, your viewpoint, your ideas, what and how future should be, and who you should be in that future. So first thing that you need to do is to understand we at CA Sri Lanka wants you to become a chartered accountant. We do not want you to not become a chartered accountant. So what we have looked at is to reduce your workload. Think about it. From 20 odd subjects, now we are at 15, right? You have 4 at each level, and the finishing part, capstone, right? And the same will repeat nicely. Right? Once you see that it's a very orderly way that we are trying to upskill and make you right skill for future, there is little reason for you to be scared, because our motive and Infinity as a tuition provider, a learning partner, their motive is to make sure you are given the best opportunities to become the best possible version of you, and your version is to become a chartered accountant, the best version of you, right? So if you take some time to firstly go through some of these scripts so you understand, and then you look at the curriculum, take your time. You have enough and more material. There are a lot of recordings that I have done, and CA Sri Lanka has done with other parties. I'm sure Infinity would have done with other parties, their own experts that they have. Make sure you take bit of time to understand what you're getting into. I think the real problem is he said this, she said that. No, see, you are going to be the future of chartered accounting. You are going to be that ideal chartered accountant who will be trusted, strategic, and a storyteller. For you to be that person, you need to make decisions independently also. So take yourself through these material. You will then realize workload has come down, right? It's the same thing going to nicely repeat, move upward. And people who are willing to think practically, right? It's not the answer, but it is the justification of the answer, right? Those people will thrive in this, right? For example, I'll just use a bit of an unwanted example, maybe. I see somebody, I like that somebody, and if your only answer is I like because I like, I don't think you will get there that far in this curriculum. But you like somebody because you know that person fits best for your this, you are the person for us. I'm sure you are that latter. You are not the one who just likes and goes after. I mean, we are different to that of animals, we are humans, right? We have the capacity to think. We have the capacity to justify, rationalize. I'm sure you will look at this as a way to lift that rational capacity, to make it tighter, and make you future proof chartered account. Come whatever it may be. Let AI come, let something else come. You're strong because you could connect dots. You are technically strong. You could look at strategically at business decisions. I'm sure you will thrive in future if you understand that's what is needed, and that's who you are if you dig deep into your research. All the best.
Dr. Patabendige, we are inspired, we are motivated, and we are definitely encouraged to face the CA Sri Lanka curriculum 2025-2030. Thank you so much to you. Thank you for such a wonderful and productive discussion where we got to know so much, including the background of how this curriculum was developed, which I know for a fact that this was truly very useful and helpful to all our students here at Infinity Learning Space and the entire accounting CA student community. So thank you very much to you, Dr. Patabendige. We truly appreciate it.
And thank you very much for hosting me. And thank you very much to Infinity Learning Space for trying to propagate the whole objective behind it to the masses. And I'm sure Infinity Learning Space will really up their game so that our students will also up their game. And as I said before, truly achieve the end objectives of being trusted strategic storytelling chartered accountants of 2030s and beyond. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We are so grateful to you. That's it from Learning Pod 2.0. Stay tuned with Infinity Learning Space as we bring you episodes just like these.